Okay, so next up in this series of objectives, we're going to look at uh, the win condition will be when you've collected a certain amount of items. Okay, those items could be whatever it is that you need for your own games. This could work for anything. We're just going to use generic items. So if I go to my content drawer, what you're going to see is I've already created like a pickup item. Okay, it's just an actor. So to create it, you just go to Blueprint class and create an actor. And you can see I've literally, all I've done is I've added a cube as a static mesh. I've added a point light underneath it, so it gives a little bit of glowing light under it. And I've added a box collision around the item. And I've added this thing called a rotating movement, so it spins around. Okay, all in there. So just add those all in, nice and simple. Okay, so if I just show you then, I drag that into the map. There you go. It will look like that. When I run over to it, you can see it's just a spinning little box with glowing underneath it. And at the moment, obviously, I can't pick it up. I just kind of walk through it. Okay, which is fine because we haven't added that bit in yet. Okay, and also you can see I made a little glowing material to add to it. If you want to know how to make glowing materials, kind of looks like this, but I did a video on emissive textures, so you can just find that video and go through it if you want to. Okay, so how do we pick these things up and be able to count how many of them we've picked up? Well, what we want, first of all, is a variable that's going to store the value of these things that we picked up. So I'm actually going to go to my first person character blueprint, and I'm just going to store the variable here because my character is always going to be a consistent object within the game. It's never going to suddenly disappear. So it's a good place to store it. So I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it pickups. And I'm going to make it an integer because that's just whole numbers. Okay, so you could have, this could be pickups, could be, I don't know, herbs or something you've got to pick up, or batteries, or I don't know, something that you've got to pick up in your game. It could be anything. And when you get to a certain amount, you've won that condition. So that's fine. I'm going to compile that, and you'll see that pickups, the default value is going to be none. That's fine. So we can come out of the character now and go back to my pickup item. Okay, that's this guy. So if I go to the event now, so here's my collision box. So I'm going to go add an event for when we begin overlapping. As I like to do, I'm going to cast to the character so that it's only the character that can walk into this item to pick it up. Okay, so when we pick up the item, we want to add to that variable. So from here, and I'm going to go set pickups. Okay, I was able to see this because that variable is stored in this object. I've just casted to it, so I'm able to find that variable. Okay. What do I want it to do? I want it to add. Okay. And then I'm going to get the pickups. Oops. I'm going to plug that into there. And how many do I want it to add? I want it to add 1 each time we pick up. Okay, so I'm setting this pickups value to +1 of whatever the current pickups value is. So if that current pickups value was 5, it's still going to add 1 to it. So it's going to go up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Perfect. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to, actually no, we'll do that in a second. That's fine. So let's just compile that. It says there's an error, it's just because I've forgotten to link that to there. Great, so now we need this condition, right? So after this, I'm going to find what's called a branch. Okay, this is like your if statement, your condition. So when something is met, we can trigger something to happen. So what do we want to happen? We want these pickups to be equal to, so I'm going to type in equal, and I'm going to go equal to or greater than. I always find if you just use equal, I always have problems with it. I don't know why, but I like to use equal to or greater than, or equal to or less than, depending on what I need it for. So it's going to be linked to these pickups, so I can link that up to there as well. Okay, so when that reaches, let's say 5, okay, then I have won my condition, so I can go create widget, just like I did in the previous video, add to viewport, and set game paused. Tick the box, link that to there, and then it's going to be my win condition there. Okay, so let's compile that. Let's make sure there are actually 5 to collect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so let's play. So if I pick all these up, oh, I've actually just realized I've forgotten something. Basically what I've forgotten is to destroy it once it's been picked up. So before we do any of that, just missed destroy actor. Okay, and the target is itself, because it's itself that's going to get destroyed. So yeah, once it's been picked up, once I've overlapped it, it's going to add this number and then destroy itself. Otherwise it will just be there forever, and I could just walk backwards and forwards over it and add to that number, which will be stupid. So let's try again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So then it says you win, and it's set the game to paused. Okay. So go back to this pickup item just to review. So once we overlap the collision box, which is that one, if it's the first person character that does it, it's going to set this number of pickups to +1 of its current value. Then it's going to destroy itself. And there's a condition attached to this, which is if that number of pickups is 5 or more, then you will essentially win. Okay, or whatever it is you want to happen at this point. Okay. Great. What I'll just also do now is link that number that I've picked up to the heads-up display, because I think that's quite important to do. So at the moment I've got my objective, which says make your way over to the big round tree. So that was from the previous video. So I'm actually going to change that to collect 5 glowing boxes. Okay, and then I'm going to add another text block underneath that, which is just going to be a value. So I'm going to type 0, and then this is going to be my number that I've got. So let's increase the size a little bit. I'll move it over. I'm going to add another text box here actually, which is going to say boxes collected. There we go, something like that. You can obviously make it look a bit more fancy. So I just need to link this number to that pickups number, or that variable that I made earlier. So here's the text, which at the moment says 0. I can change it to whatever I want. I'm going to leave it at 0. And I've got a binding here. So I'm going to create a binding and bind it to that variable. So think about where the variable was stored. It's in the character. So cast to first person character. The object of that is the player character. And I'm going to get my pickups variable and then link that to the return value. Lovely. So that is bound now to this number here. So if I push play, see it says boxes collected and there's a number, so I can now actually see as I go along how many I've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll get this 5th one. But obviously you can see it says collect 5 glowing boxes. It's boxes numbers collected, so it's really clear to the player what the objective is, and obviously now they can achieve it Okay, great. Hopefully that's helpful. So that's about how we can clear an objective, which is to collect a certain number of items. This can also apply, to be fair, to if you had like a bunch of enemies and you had to destroy a certain number of enemies. It would be the same thing. You would have this for destroying the enemies, and then when a certain amount are destroyed, the same win condition is the same thing. All right, so hopefully that's helpful. And yeah, that's all.